Family disowned me 7 years ago cause I exposed sister's cheating to her Zachary. Now crawled back to me. The audacity of it all. My family, the ones who disowned me 7 years ago for exposing my sister's cheating, were now crawling back to me, begging for money. My jaw dropped. My parents and sister, yes, the same ones who had shunned me, were suddenly desperate for my help. I'm still trying to process the nerve it took for them to come to me after all they'd done. But I guess that's what happens when karma comes knocking. Before I jump into the main event, a little context. I'm 34, female, and I grew up in the shadow of my sister Avery, who's 37. She was always the golden child, the center of our parents' attention. I, on the other hand, felt like an afterthought, as if my needs didn't matter. My parents poured everything into making Avery a success, leaving me to figure things out on my own. She was pretty, but her character, well, it was questionable. She got away with everything, and it was infuriating to watch. As a kid, she was okay, but in our teenage years, she transformed into a total nightmare. She constantly manipulated, talked down to, and humiliated me in front of our family and friends. The worst part? Nobody ever held her accountable. She couldn't handle me getting any attention, even the smallest amount. She'd always find a way to steal the spotlight and make me look bad. It was exhausting being around her. Avery wasted 2 years after high school figuring out what to do next, until Dad got her admitted to a design school without her lifting a finger. Meanwhile, I was told to study hard, scramble for scholarships, and take care of my own expenses. For Avery, they were personal piggy banks. They took out loans to fund her college, only to see her drop out halfway through. Even with that, she managed to snag paid internships and jobs at good places, but sadly, she couldn't hold on to them for long. She was fired for her inconsistencies or quit because she couldn't handle the workplace. After a while, she convinced Dad to buy her a boutique because she didn't want to work for someone else. She dropped out of college with half-baked experience, and still, my father jumped in to help her. He secured a loan and set up a decent boutique for her. On the other hand, I was stuck working at cafes and tutoring kids to cover my expenses. He always had money for her but was broke when I asked for help. I had to take out a loan for college, which took me years to pay back. It was a double standard that pushed me away from my family. I moved out after high school and rarely visited them. Our family dynamics changed for the worse, and one of those visits, 7 years ago, changed everything. I was home for Christmas after 2.5 years, at my mom's insistence. Avery had moved out by then and was running her boutique. She was engaged to a guy, a total catch. He was a chemical engineer, easy on the eyes and loaded. They'd been dating for a while and were planning a wedding in a few months at a fancy destination. I spoke to him, and he seemed like a decent guy. I wondered what he saw in my sister, but I kept my inquisitiveness to myself. Avery also seemed to be a changed person, warm and nice towards me, probably trying to show off her boyfriend how sweet she was. He was clearly smitten, but Avery, she wasn't as much into him. But he had the money. Avery invited me to her boutique for a tour. I said I'd drop by when I was free. The next day, I was walking past her store and decided to see what she was up to. When I arrived, the sign said closed. I was confused because it was 11 o'clock a.m. and working hours. I pushed the door and realized it was open. I thought maybe she was taking a break or something. I called her, but her number went straight to voicemail. I went inside hesitantly, and what I saw made my stomach churn. She was making out with a guy in the corner of her store. At first, I thought it was her Zachary, so I started to walk out, saying sorry, but then Avery saw me and pushed the guy off. That's when I saw his face, and it wasn't her Zachary. I came outside, and Avery followed me, asking me to stop. I didn't know how to react, so I just stopped. We stood there in silence. She broke the silence, asking, "You're not going to tell anyone about this, right?" I stared at her in disbelief. What she said in her defense was even more disgusting. "I'm sorry, it didn't mean anything. He was just a cute customer who came here to buy lingerie for his girlfriend." I was baffled. I didn't know what to say. He came to buy lingerie for his girlfriend and snooped inside Avery's store. She kept saying, "I'm sorry," He was just too cute. He made the moves. He was too gorgeous to ignore. I'm so sorry. Let's leave this story here. I was like, why are you saying sorry to me? Does your Zachary know about your makeout session at the boutique? I'm sure it's not just a one-off incident. He must be a regular at this. She swore to God that it was the first time she had ever cheated on her Zachary, but I highly doubted it. All her previous relationships had broken up because of her cheating. She tried to convince me and begged me to keep quiet and not tell anyone. So I left, pissed off. I felt terrible for her Zachary. It was partly due to the fact that I had been cheated on a month ago and was going through a bitter phase. Maybe that's why I was so empathetic towards her Zachary. I went home and was restless. I blurted out to my mom what I saw at the store. To my surprise, she shrugged it off and asked me to keep quiet. Her point was, Avery was getting married in a couple of months, and I couldn't screw it up. Wait a minute, I couldn't screw it up? Your daughter is screwing up at the dark corner of her store. Any thoughts on that? She brushed it off, saying, her life, her choice. Sure, it is, but god dang it, she's cheating on her Zachary, and she was supporting her. She was more concerned about losing a wealthy son-in-law and the lavish wedding to show off to friends and relatives. They asked me to cover it up and brush it off as a one-time mistake, but I knew it wasn't. I was furious with the cheating and also my parents taking this casually. They didn't even bother to knock some sense into Avery. Avery texted me, asking, "We're cool, right?" I said, "No, we're not until you come clean with your Zachary." She rushed to meet me at my parents'. Initially, she said the same stuff, that it was a one-off mistake and I should let it go. But when I didn't budge, she got aggressive. She was like, "What's your problem? How does it matter to you? Why are you being so nosy?" I remained unmoved and pestered her to confess to her Zachary. It became a fighting match between us. My parents joined Avery in defending her and asked me to mind my business. The situation became so toxic and suffocating that I stormed out of the house. I wanted to leave right then, but I had my flight the next morning. So I wandered around the neighborhood, and when I went back home in the evening, I saw Avery sitting there with her Zachary and his parents. I greeted everyone and was about to head to my room, but her Zachary asked me to join them. His parents were in town and decided to drop by. Avery and my parents got uncomfortable. Avery was like, no, she has a flight to catch in the morning. She has to pack and stuff. She can't hang out with us. Her Zachary's parents were sweet and asked me where I lived and about my job. Avery was in a hurry to shoo me away and used humor to ease her anxiety. She said, "Oh, whoa, don't be bothered. You guys are the first people who have shown interest in her life. She just has a regular job. Not everyone can pull off a business like me, right, honey?" and kissed her Zachary. I was about to mind my business, but her words made my blood boil, and I shot back, "Yes, that's right. Not everyone is lucky enough to own a boutique and screw with their customers." You can well imagine the tension in the air. There was an awkward silence. Everyone just looked at each other. Mom broke the silence by laughing. "You scared everyone with your dark sense of humor." Avery and my parents laughed, but everyone else still had a confused face. I looked at her Zachary, smiled, and said, "Yes, my sense of humor, dark in truth." I pushed off to my room, and her Zachary followed me to the hallway, asking, "What do you mean?" Avery followed him, saying she was just kidding. He ignored her and asked me if it was just humor. I realized I'd invited trouble for myself by speaking up. It was a very difficult moment for me. Her breakup was just a word away. I remained silent, not knowing what to say, but then I looked at both of their faces and said it wasn't a joke. Avery started screaming at me, "Why are you lying? Are you jealous that I'm going to get married to such a charming man while your boyfriend dumped you?" I was stunned at the level of her bitterness. I lost my cool and told her Zachary what I saw that morning. He freaked out, denying it and saying I was just framing her out of jealousy. My parents and his parents heard the chaos and rushed to the room. Mom joined Avery in cornering me and said, "Please ignore her words. She's going through a tough time. She got cheated upon, and now she sees everyone as a cheater. You know Avery cannot do such a thing, right?" I was astonished at her words. My mother was projecting me as nuts in front of them. Thankfully, her Zachary wasn't dumb, and he asked for Avery's phone. She clung to it, but he forced her to hand it over. She tried to play the card of privacy, but he put his foot down and demanded she show him the chats. His parents and my dad joined him and asked Avery to show him the phone and get it done with. But Mom was at Avery's side, saying asking for the phone was a breach of privacy and he should trust Avery over me. It was a total crap show. My mom was already giving me dead looks. Finally, he snatched her phone and forced her to unlock it. There it was. Flirts, sexts, nudes. He threw the ring at her face, forced the ring off her finger, and stormed off with his parents. It was smart of him not to let her cheating go unpunished, especially with the thousands of dollars ring. Avery was practically on her knees, begging him not to call off the wedding. She ran behind them outside to stop them and plead with them to listen to her. You can well imagine the hell I went through after that. As soon as they left, Mom slapped me across the face before I could even speak. She screamed at me, "Get out. You're dead to us. Don't you ever show your face to us. You're no longer our daughter." I looked at Dad, and he shook his head in disgust and left without uttering a word. But I didn't cry. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'm never coming back to this hellhole." I grabbed my stuff and walked out. Avery came charging at me, but I pushed her away and walked out. She was bawling and cursing me for ruining her life. I spent the night at the airport. I blocked all of them immediately and deleted their contacts. Since then, no contact with any of them. Yesterday, I got an unexpected visitor. That's right, Avery and Mom. They were in a tight spot. Avery's life had imploded. Her boutique went under, and she was struggling. Of course, my parents were broke too, and landed up in a huge debt because Dad had been sick with some gnarly disease and couldn't work. So they came crawling to me for help. I slammed the door in their face and didn't let them in. I do feel satisfied with my actions, but there's a part of me who feels concerned about my dad. Do you guys think it's a good idea to help my dad since he's been hit by a disease? It must have taken some serious gall for Avery and Mom to show up thinking you'd just sweep their mess under the rug after they treated you like yesterday's garbage. As for Dad, well, it's tricky. On the one hand, it's tempting to let karma do its thing and watch from the sidelines as they reap what they've sown. But on the other hand, the old man's health is a different beast. Maybe consider tossing him a bone if you can do it, without getting entangled in their drama again. Thank you, fellow editors, for your advice. Here are a few add-ons. I was uneasy. I got a mixed response on my post, so I contacted my aunt, my father's sister, who lives a block away from my parents. I've always been in moderate touch with her ever since I moved out. Aunt usually fills me up with the drama going on there. It was long ago that she told me about Dad being guilty of mistreating me and wanted to mend the fence. But my mom was still Team Avery and deterred him from contacting me. I know my dad is a peacemaker, and he wouldn't want to ruin the peace of his house by having me back. I learned that Dad stopped paying off the mortgage for the boutique after Avery's cheating came out. He had already paid for more than half of it until then. He asked her to pay the remaining, but she faltered, and it was put up for auction. Obviously, she couldn't secure it. Karma is a beautiful thing. After her breakup, she quickly found herself a new sugar daddy to fund her lavish lifestyle. But surprise, surprise, her cheating ways caught up with her again, and he dumped her too. Meanwhile, my mom was still blindly supporting Avery, never once calling her out for her mistakes, because she was also freeloading off the stuff she got from her boyfriends and Dad. Now that he's sick and couldn't work and bring money, they don't even care about him. It's like karma's come full circle. He never supported me or took my side, so I couldn't care less about him now. He made his bed, and now he's lying in it. After a month, I learned that Mom had dumped Dad into a filthy care facility. They had defaulted on the insurance premium for a year, so the coverage had dropped significantly, and now they had to sponsor a large portion of the surgery by themselves. Obviously, she couldn't afford it, or maybe she didn't want to waste the money on his treatment. I felt bad. I just couldn't make peace with letting him die while I had the means to save him. So I went to meet him. He broke down on seeing me. He cried, hugged me, and apologized. He told me Mom never visited him after dumping him there. I took him out from there and got him admitted to a decent healthcare facility and paid for his treatment. Mom and Avery somehow got to know, and they visited the hospital. Dad chased them away and told Mom you would deal with her once he got back on his feet. Avery maintained distance from me, but Mom tried to talk to me, thanking me for stepping up and taking responsibility. I turned my back towards her and pretended she didn't exist. Dad got discharged 3 weeks ago, and he's doing well. I sometimes check on him, but the conversation is still cold from my side. I told him that since he raised me, I owed him this much, but now he shouldn't expect anything else from me. Neither do I want to be in touch. He respects my boundaries and said he would like to work on a relationship, but obviously at my pace. I'm yet to decide on that. That's it for now. We'll update if anything significant rolls up. Wow, karma really hit the gas pedal on this one, didn't it? The audacity of your mom to just dump your dad in a care facility the moment he couldn't foot the bills. Good on you for stepping up but keeping the distance. It's probably for the best. You gave him a lifeline without diving back into the cesspool, and that's how you play the long game. Oh, I have some spice. So as Dad promised, the first thing he did after getting back on his feet was to abandon Mom. He sold the house right under her nose, packed his stuff in an RV, and silently left. Mom was visiting Avery during this time, and when she came back, he was gone. Soon, she got the notice to vacate the house as it no longer belonged to them. She panicked and went to register a missing complaint, but the officers investigated the details and concluded Dad was not missing. He had left of his own choice, so no complaint was registered. Mom was left at Avery's mercy, who herself was living off her boyfriend's place. So naturally, she came to me. As soon as I answered the door, she started howling and apologizing. I had to let her in. I live in an apartment and couldn't let her create a scene. She narrated the details I wrote above. I was like, so what? Why me? What happened to your golden child? Why isn't she having your back? She started sobbing. Avery is having a tough time making ends meet. Her boutique got shut. The sales took a hit due to short supply. She didn't have money for the inventory. She couldn't pay the mortgage, and everything fell apart. She's somehow holding herself up, but it's impossible for her to take care of me. Okay, so that's why you came knocking at my door, whom you never supported but resented your whole life. She was quick to defend herself. Honey, it was your dad who financially preferred Avery over you. Design school, the boutique, yet you paid for his treatment. I have always treated both of you girls equally, yet your bitter words towards me. If you're angry about that slap, then I'm really sorry. You can't imagine the humiliation we went through after Avery's wedding was called off. I didn't support Avery's cheating. All I wanted from you was to keep quiet until the wedding. But nonetheless, that's the past. Please forgive your mom. I said I didn't need to justify why I paid for Dad's treatment and why I couldn't help her. It's my money and my decision. I told her I wasn't comfortable talking to her, so she better leave and don't show up at my place ever again. She left after that, saying sorry later. I learned that she's now working at a salon. Well, good for her that she finally realized the importance of getting back on her feet. Just a couple of days ago, I learned that Avery had been kicked out by her boyfriend because she was found cheating again. Once a cheater, always a cheater, you know? She came to Mom's for help, but this time, she got thrashed out. Mom herself is surviving out of a friend's garage. And how could Avery expect help from her? Apparently, Mom lashed out at Avery, saying she was the reason why Dad left and why I hated them. After that, Avery called me from a new number. She was crying and wanted me to pitch in, but I hung up without even letting her complete her sentence. I blocked her number. She then sent me a long email. She was pinning the blame on Mom for enabling her toxic behavior. She was like, I wasn't born this way. Our parents made me so. Why couldn't they teach me morals and values? They spoon-fed me, and now they both suddenly abandoned me to fend for myself. How unfair it is. They could have taught me self-dependence as they taught you. If you think you've suffered because of their biases, you're wrong. I've suffered. See my life and yours. I'm still dependent on others. hopping from one shoulder to another. But see yourself, please help me in putting my life together. Please help me. Her email was heartwarming, isn't it? What do you guys think I did after reading it? That's right, I deleted it and blocked her. I know she's very good at manipulation. How else do you think she manages to get rich men to shower their hard-earned money on her? Yes, beauty is one enabler, but she's good with her words too, and maybe with other stuff as well. I care least for her or my mother or even my father. I paid for a surgery because I felt I owed him for bringing me into this world and raising me. That's it. I have suffered immense mental torture because of them, and it took me years to heal. There's no way I'm going to disrupt my peace for them. Deleting that email was the best move. Why let their toxic theatrics mess with your hard-earned peace? It's clear you've mastered the art of setting boundaries and staying unbothered. And honestly, after everything you've been through, it's about time you let them all stew in the mess they created. Karma is a dish best served cold, and it looks like it's finally on the menu for your mom and sister. Enjoy the show from the sidelines. You've earned it. What do you think? What would you have done? Thank you for joining us today in the AR Lounge. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon, and put your chair back where you found it.